Hello, brothers, and welcome to our midweek meeting. We invite you to listen to the following speech of treasures from God's Word, with the theme, Go to the House of Mourning.
When the inspired writer of Ecclesiastes said, "Better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting," Ecclesiastes 7:2. He was reminding us of something deeply human and profoundly spiritual. At first, those words may seem puzzling. Why would it be better to go to a place filled with tears than to one filled with laughter? Yet Solomon, under inspiration, helps us see life from a higher, wiser perspective. The House of Mourning confronts us with the realities of life, our own mortality, our dependence on God, and the preciousness of the relationships He has given us. In contrast, the House of Feasting often encourages us to forget such things. It is easy to become absorbed in pleasure, laughter, and distraction, forgetting how brief and fragile human life is. But in the House of Mourning, the heart becomes more reflective. We are reminded that each day we live is a gift from our Creator. As Ecclesiastes 3:1-4 says, "There is a time for everything, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance." Jehovah, in His wisdom, allows both joy and sorrow because each plays a role in shaping our heart and deepening our compassion. When we visit those who are grieving, we are not only offering comfort, we are also learning humility and empathy. The verse continues, "For that is the end of every man, and the living should take it to heart." Ecclesiastes 7:2. Each of us is reminded that life is temporary. Yet rather than leading us to despair, this realization draws us closer to God. We become more conscious of how important it is to live meaningfully, to show love, and to treasure those around us. It takes courage to go to a home where someone is grieving. It may feel uncomfortable. We may worry about what to say, but being present, simply being there, is a gift of comfort that speaks louder than words. The wise person does not avoid sorrow, but enters it with empathy, using that moment to strengthen both the mourner and himself. Ecclesiastes 7:1 says, "A good name is better than good oil, and the day of death is better than the day of birth." A good name refers to a reputation built through years of faithfulness, kindness, and integrity. When a faithful life ends, that name shines even brighter in the memory of those who remain. That is why it is so comforting to speak about the good qualities of the person who has died. Prayer has a special power in times of sorrow. Even when we struggle to find words, Jehovah listens to the heart. When we pray with someone who is grieving, our sincere words, even through tears, can bring strength and peace. One sister, Delane, shared, "Sometimes when sisters came to comfort me, I asked them to pray. At first they battled to speak, but within a few sentences their voice grew stronger, and their words were deeply moving. Their faith strengthened mine." Grief often returns in unexpected ways. Anniversaries, music, familiar places, or even a certain smell can awaken fresh pain. The first time a widow or widower attends an assembly, a memorial, or even a meeting without their spouse can be especially difficult. One brother shared, "I expected my first wedding anniversary to be very painful, and it was. But some brothers planned a small gathering with my closest friends so I wouldn't be alone. Words alone are not enough." The Apostle John reminded Christians, "Let us love, not in word or with the tongue, but in deed and truth." 1 John 3:18. True love acts. It offers a meal, a hand to hold, help with errands, or simply a listening ear. When we take time to assist the bereaved in practical ways, we bring them tangible evidence of Jehovah's care. Hello, brothers. On this occasion, we want to share with you our weekly research on spiritual gems. October 13th to 19/20/25. We begin with the first question. How can these verses help us determine whether to approach a person who has offended us? These verses remind us to be humble and reasonable before reacting when someone offends us. Ecclesiastes 7:20-22 helps us see that no one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, including us. So instead of focusing on what was said or done, we can remember that we too have failed at times and may have even spoken thoughtlessly about others. If we think about that, we're less likely to take offense or hold a grudge. Often, the most loving and peaceful choice is simply to overlook the matter. By doing so, we imitate Jehovah, who is patient and forgiving with our own imperfections. Next question. What spiritual gems from this week's Bible reading would you like to share? Ecclesiastes 7:1. A good name is better than good oil, and the day of death is better than the day of birth. This verse reminds us that a good reputation in Jehovah's eyes is far more valuable than any material success. A good name is built through faithfulness, humility, and endurance over time. The day of death can be better than the day of birth when a faithful person's record of integrity is complete and pleasing to God. It encourages us to live each day in a way that strengthens our spiritual legacy before Jehovah. Ecclesiastes 7:2-4. Better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning. These verses teach that reflecting on death helps us value life properly. When we attend a funeral or comfort someone who is grieving, we're reminded of our own mortality and the importance of drawing close to Jehovah. Instead of chasing entertainment or distractions, a wise person lets moments of sorrow refine his heart and strengthen his resolve to live with purpose. Ecclesiastes 7:5-6. Better to listen to a wise man's rebuke than to listen to the song of fools. A wise person appreciates correction because it leads to growth. Fools may flatter or entertain us, but their words add no real value. Accepting constructive counsel, even when it stings, shows maturity and humility. It's a reminder that discipline, whether from Jehovah, the elders, or a friend, is a gift meant to protect and improve us. Ecclesiastes 7:8-9. Better is the end of a matter than its beginning. Better to be patient than to be haughty in spirit. Do not be quick to take offense. This passage emphasizes endurance and patience. Often beginnings are exciting, but finishing requires perseverance. Jehovah values those who patiently endure challenges rather than reacting with pride or anger. By controlling our emotions and avoiding quick offense, we reflect Christ-like humility and maintain peace within the congregation. Ecclesiastes 7:10. Do not say, "Why were the former days better than these?" This is a warning against nostalgia that blinds us to Jehovah's blessings today. Longing for the good old days can make us ungrateful and resistant to progress. Instead, we should focus on what Jehovah is doing now and how his organization continues to move forward toward the fulfillment of his promises. Ecclesiastes 7:11-12. Wisdom is a protection, just as money is a protection, but the advantage of knowledge is this: wisdom preserves the life of its owner. Money can offer temporary security, but spiritual wisdom gives lasting protection. True wisdom, applying Jehovah's guidance, helps us avoid moral and emotional dangers. It preserves life because it keeps us close to God, guiding our choices and shielding us from spiritual ruin. Ecclesiastes 7:13-14. Consider the work of the true God. On a good day, reflect this goodness. But on the day of adversity, consider that God made the one as well as the other. This teaches balance and faith. When life is pleasant, we thank Jehovah. When it's hard, we still trust him knowing both experiences have purpose. Accepting both good and bad times with humility deepens our reliance on Jehovah and strengthens our spiritual maturity. Ecclesiastes 7:20-22. There is no righteous man on earth who always does good and never sins. Do not take to heart every word that people say. Jehovah's word helps us stay realistic and humble. No one is perfect, and we all make mistakes. By not overreacting to others' words or criticism, we show spiritual maturity and compassion. Remembering our own imperfections helps us forgive freely and maintain unity in the congregation. Ecclesiastes 8:1. Who is like the wise man? Who knows the solution to a problem? A man's wisdom lights up his face and softens his stern appearance. True wisdom, which comes from Jehovah, changes not only the way we think but also the way we appear to others. A person guided by godly wisdom radiates calmness and peace even during stressful times. This reminds us that wisdom has a softening effect. It makes us approachable and reflects the inner joy that comes from knowing and trusting God. Ecclesiastes 8:2-4. Obey the king's orders out of regard for the oath to God, for the word of the king is absolute. Solomon highlights respect for authority. Christians show proper submission to governments and leaders, not out of fear, but because of our respect for Jehovah's arrangement. Even when we disagree, our obedience and calm conduct demonstrate our loyalty to God above all human rulership. Ecclesiastes 8:5-6. The one who observes the commandment will not experience harm, and the wise heart will know the right time and procedure. Wisdom helps us act at the right time and in the right way. Instead of reacting impulsively, we pray for Jehovah's direction and wait patiently for his timing. When facing problems, whether in the congregation or in personal life, wisdom teaches us discretion and peace, not haste. Ecclesiastes 8:8. No man has power over the day of death, nor can wickedness rescue those who practice it. Human power and wealth cannot prevent death or shield a person from its effects. This humbles us and reminds us to focus on spiritual pursuits rather than on trying to control the uncontrollable. The only true security comes from Jehovah, who promises everlasting life. Ecclesiastes 8:9. Man has dominated man to his harm. This reality underlines the failure of human rulership. No government can bring real peace or justice. Only Jehovah's kingdom can end oppression and suffering. This motivates us to keep our focus on the kingdom message and not place our trust in imperfect human systems. Ecclesiastes 8:12-13. Although a sinner may do bad 100 times and still live a long time, it will turn out well for those who fear the true God. Fearing Jehovah, meaning deep respect and reverence for him, leads to lasting peace and protection. Wicked people may seem to prosper for a time, but their success is short-lived. This verse reassures us that serving Jehovah is never in vain. Blessings always come to those who remain faithful. Ecclesiastes 8:14. There are righteous people who are treated as if they had acted wickedly, and wicked people who are treated as if they had acted righteously. Life under imperfection can seem unfair, but Jehovah sees all things accurately. Even when injustice prevails temporarily, he will soon set matters straight. This verse strengthens our patience and trust in divine justice rather than human fairness. Ecclesiastes 8:15. I recommended rejoicing, for there is nothing better for man under the sun than to eat and drink and rejoice. Jehovah wants us to find balance and joy in life. Despite the vanity and injustice in the world, we can enjoy the simple blessings he provides: good food, meaningful work, family, and spiritual association. Gratitude turns daily routines into gifts from God. Hello, brothers, and welcome. Today we are going to analyze the congregation's Bible study together with you. October 13th to 19th, 2025. Let's start by answering the questions from the paragraphs. What happened when the 12 spies came back from Canaan? When the 12 spies came back from Canaan, they gave two very different reports. All 12 agreed that the land was beautiful and full of good things, bringing back large clusters of grapes, pomegranates, and figs as proof. However, 10 of the spies focused on the dangers. They said the cities were strong, the walls were high, and the people were giants. Their negative report made the Israelites afraid and discouraged. Caleb and Joshua, on the other hand, trusted in Jehovah and encouraged the people to move forward, saying that with Jehovah's help, they could conquer the land. But the people refused to listen, complaining against Moses and even talking about going back to Egypt. Because of their lack of faith, Jehovah decided that only Joshua, Caleb, and the children of that generation would enter the promised land, while the rest would die in the wilderness after 40 years of wandering. Let's move on to the next question. How did Joshua and Caleb show that they trusted in Jehovah? Joshua and Caleb showed their trust in Jehovah by speaking up with faith and courage, even when everyone else was afraid. They had seen the same strong cities and powerful people as the other spies. But instead of focusing on the danger, they focused on Jehovah's power. Caleb said, "We can conquer them. Let's go right away," showing confidence that Jehovah would give them victory. Later, when the people began to complain and talk about going back to Egypt, Joshua and Caleb pleaded with them not to rebel against Jehovah and reminded them that he would protect them. Their faith stood out because they didn't let fear or the negative attitude of others weaken their confidence in Jehovah. As a result, Jehovah rewarded them for their loyalty. They were the only ones from their generation allowed to enter the promised land. Let's move on to the next question. What does this teach us about Jehovah? This account teaches us that Jehovah values faith, courage, and obedience, and that he rewards those who trust in him even when others do not. Jehovah noticed the difference between Joshua and Caleb and the rest of the spies. While most doubted, these two showed strong confidence in his power. This shows that Jehovah pays close attention to each person's attitude and loyalty. He doesn't bless fear or lack of faith, but he supports those who remain positive and obedient despite challenges. It also teaches us that Jehovah is patient and just. Although he punished the unfaithful Israelites, he still cared for their children and allowed Joshua and Caleb to enter the promised land. This reminds us that Jehovah always keeps his promises, that his judgments are fair, and that he rewards faithfulness in his own perfect time. Next question. What practical lessons can we learn? One practical lesson we can learn is the importance of maintaining faith and a positive attitude even when others around us are fearful or negative. Joshua and Caleb trusted Jehovah completely, while the rest of the spies focused on the problems. This shows that our faith should not depend on what others think or say, but on our confidence in Jehovah's power and promises. We also learn the value of courage. It takes courage to stand for what is right, especially when most people disagree. Like Joshua and Caleb, we can choose to speak and act with faith, knowing Jehovah supports those who stay loyal to him. Another lesson is that doubt and fear can cause us to lose blessings. The Israelites missed out on entering the promised land because they let fear guide their decisions. When we trust Jehovah, even in difficult circumstances, we keep ourselves in line to receive his blessings and protection. Now we move on to the analysis of Lesson 27. They rebelled against Jehovah. First question. Why did Korah and his supporters rebel against Moses? Korah and his supporters rebelled against Moses because they were motivated by pride, jealousy, and a desire for power. They claimed that Moses and Aaron were taking too much authority for themselves, arguing that everyone in the congregation was holy and that Jehovah was with all of them equally. Numbers 16:3. But their real motive wasn't equality, it was ambition. Korah, being a Levite, wanted the priestly position that Jehovah had given only to Aaron and his sons. Dathan, Abiram, and the 250 others also resented Moses' leadership and refused to recognize Jehovah's arrangement. Their attitude shows how pride can distort thinking and lead people to challenge those whom Jehovah has appointed. In reality, their rebellion was not just against Moses and Aaron, it was against Jehovah himself, because he was the one who had chosen and directed them. This reminds us that opposing the men Jehovah uses is, in fact, opposing Jehovah's authority. Next question. How do we know that Jehovah chose Aaron to be the high priest? We know that Jehovah chose Aaron to be the high priest because he confirmed it through a clear and miraculous sign. Jehovah told Moses to collect a staff from the leader of each tribe with the names written on them and to place all the staffs inside the tabernacle. On the staff representing the tribe of Levi, Moses wrote Aaron's name. The next day, when Moses brought the staffs out, Aaron's staff had miraculously sprouted, blossomed, and produced ripe almonds. Numbers 17:1-8. This miracle left no doubt that Jehovah himself had chosen Aaron for the priesthood. It silenced the complaints of those who had questioned Jehovah's arrangement and showed that spiritual positions in his service are not gained by ambition or human choice, but by divine appointment. It also reminded the Israelites, and us today, that Jehovah supports those he selects to care for his people. Let's move on to the next question. What does this teach us about Jehovah? This teaches us that Jehovah is a God of order, justice, and fairness, who chooses and supports those who serve him faithfully. He made it clear that the priesthood was not a human decision, but a divine arrangement, showing that he alone has the right to assign responsibilities in his organization. Jehovah did not allow confusion or rebellion to continue. Instead, he acted decisively to protect the unity and purity of his people. At the same time, this account shows Jehovah's patience and mercy. He gave the Israelites a visible sign through Aaron's blossoming staff to help them understand his will and restore peace among them. It reminds us that Jehovah wants his people to recognize and respect the arrangements he has made and to trust that his choices are always wise and for our good. Next question. What practical lessons can we learn? One practical lesson we can learn is the importance of showing respect and loyalty to those whom Jehovah appoints to take the lead. Korah and his supporters allowed pride and jealousy to cloud their judgment, which led them to rebel against Jehovah's arrangement. Their example warns us against developing a critical or independent spirit toward those taking the lead in the congregation. When we cooperate and support them, we show respect for Jehovah, the one who appointed them. Another lesson is that Jehovah values humility. Instead of seeking recognition or authority, we should focus on serving faithfully wherever we are assigned, trusting that Jehovah sees and values our obedience. This account also teaches us to avoid being influenced by those who complain or stir up discontent. Staying loyal and submissive keeps the congregation peaceful and united, which pleases Jehovah and brings his blessing.